Good evening. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Classic Comics live stream. I need to come up with an intro, don't I? Some kind of a musical bit maybe to start the streams off. I need to work on that. But anyway, there's a few different things I'm going to be looking at tonight. One thing, of course, is talking about the rumors of the Snyderverse going to Netflix, possibly. And there's a big event that Zack Snyder's got coming up that's kind of stoked rumors that there's going to be more Snyderverse coming. And then on top of that, we've got this whole situation with with Shazam bombing at the box office, Shazam 2. Unfortunately, because as I've said, I like the film. Zachary Levi has had a lot to say, and I think that the fact that he's being so uh, open about this, I think it kind of indicates that these Shazam movies aren't going anywhere. Because if they were and he was expecting to get more work, I don't think he'd be saying some of the things he's saying. But he's been pretty open, criticizing just kind of Warner Brothers' approach to things, and he's had said some things kind of critical of The Rock as well. We'll take a look at that. Hey, J Man. Hey, thanks for stopping by. I know you've got a stream coming up later, so I know you probably won't be here very long, but thank you for stopping by anyway. So, but the main thing I'm going to start off with is this whole Victoria Alonso situation. Now, I dropped a video yesterday talking about her recent firing from Disney. Now, as I was uploading the video, there was some more information that started to come out. Let me share this article. And this is from the Hollywood Reporter. So, as I was uploading yesterday, I saw this. So, apparently, now Victoria Alonso and her attorney are starting to speak out and saying that there's more to this than meets the eye, and saying that there's going to be more coming out in the coming weeks, and that maybe Disney is not going to like it so much. So, again, the Hollywood Reporter, inside the firing of Victoria Alonso, her Oscar nominated movie Argentina 1985 at center of exit. The longtime Marvel executive's attorney said in a statement of the firing, Victoria, a gay Latina who had the courage to criticize Disney, was silenced. The Oscar nominated film Argentina 1985 was at the center of last week's sudden firing of longtime Marvel Studio executive Victoria Alonso, the Hollywood Reporter has learned. You'll be in and out for a bit, J-Man? Okay, that's cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it. So Alonso was one of the 8 producers on the Argentine historical drama, which was distributed by Amazon and competed for the Best International Feature Oscar. However, by assuming that role, she breached her contract several times, according to sources. After repeated warnings, the situation came to a head the week after the Academy Awards and ultimately led to her termination. It was a seismic shakeup at Marvel, where for years Alonso was part of the Holy Trinity, along with Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige and co-president Louis D'Esposito, who led the Marvel Cinematic Universe to ever greater heights. According to insiders, Alonso breached a 2018 agreement that included the company's standards of business conduct, which states that employees cannot work for competing studios. Sources say that Alonso did not ask permission to work on Argentina in 1985, nor did she give notice. However, an IndieWire piece published last month on the film stated that she did have permission. When Disney found out about the project and the violation, her longtime service and veteran status led the company to give her a dispensation on the condition that she not work on the movie further. She was also not to promote it or publicize it in any way. The situation of a top executive working on a movie outside company confines was deemed serious enough to involve the management audit team, and a new memo was signed according to an insider. A rep for Disney declined to comment. Alonso's attorney, Patty Glazer, released a statement after the initial publication of this story. Said the attorney, the idea that Victoria was fired over a handful of press interviews relating to a personal passion project about human rights and democracy that was nominated for an Oscar and which she got Disney's blessing to work on is absolutely ridiculous. Victoria, a gay Latina who had the courage to criticize Disney, was silenced. Then she was terminated when she refused to do something she believed was reprehensible. Disney and Marvel made a really poor decision that will have serious consequences. There's a lot more to the story, and Victoria will be telling it shortly in one forum or another. The plot thickens. Argentina 1985 premiered in September 2022 at the Venice International Film Festival, and soon the drama was on the awards track. Alonso then found herself front and center in the film's campaign, attending screenings, sitting on panels, and doing interviews. Hello, Derpy Entertainment. I'm sad as DC fan that the Snyder Cult is still irrelevant a decade later. Yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that after I get done with the this Victoria Alonso story. So please do stick around for that. Okay. Alonso then found herself front and center in the film's campaign, attending screenings, sitting on panels, and doing interviews. According to sources, she was reminded of her agreement and her breach several times, but the campaigning continued. She even appeared on the Oscars rivals carpet, not as a Marvel executive associated with that studio's multi nominated Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but rather as Argentina 1985's producer, walking with the film's director, Santiago Mitre. I'm not sure how you say that. What also rankled Disney executives was that while she was busy promoting Argentina 1985, her purview over Marvel's visual effects as president of physical and post production, visual effects, and animation production was busier than ever. Throughout the last year or so, Marvel has pumped out an unprecedented number of series and movies. A general impression emerged that VFX artists were not being well treated by Marvel, attributed to factors including long hours, drum tight deadlines, and a lack of a singular vision. Releases including the February film Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania were catching flack for subpar visual effects, while Alonso herself became more and more polarizing. You can only ask a person to stay until 1 a.m. working on VFX shots for so long before things start to break, says one post production source. Another post production talent says they have avoided working with Marvel because of Alonso's reputation for being challenging. Still, she had her supporters, including Eternal star Salma Hayek, who called her the best jefa ever in a December 2021 post. Like, that's relevant. In any case, things came to a head post Oscars, and Alonso was terminated for cause. For the Buenos Aires born Alonso, Argentina 1985 was a personal tale. The feature stars Ricardo Darin as Julio Cesar Stracera, the prosecutor who led the case against the country's military junta, whose reign of military terror led to the disappearance of 30,000 people. I've made a lot of stories about superheroes, Alonso told IndieWire in the story published last month, and I've always wanted to tell a story about what happened in Argentina because I should have been one of those 30,000 people. Alonso's firing shocked the town because of its sudden nature and because the reasons for it were unknown. Some speculated that Alonso was being silenced because she was outspoken about Florida's so called Don't Say Gay bill, which Governor Ron DeSantis signed in March of 2022. And that's kind of what my theory was in that video that I released yesterday. I was saying it was probably about that, or at least partly about that. As long as I'm at Marvel Studios, I will fight for representation, Alonso, who is gay, said at the time, recounting at the 2022 GLAAD Media Awards of how she spoke with then Disney CEO Bob Chapek for 45 minutes on the topic. Added the exec to the crowd. So I ask you again, Mr. Chapek, please respect if we're selling family, take a stand against all these crazy, outdated laws. Disney took a stand against the bill, resulting in a clash with the state government and ultimately the loss of a special tax status. It is a move that will likely cost the company millions. It'll cost the company millions a year, like annually. But other sources say that being vocal had only increased Alonso's profile within the company. She was asked to represent the company on the board of GLAAD, join the company's Pride 365 leadership team, and made a deal with the company's publishing division to write a memoir. In any case, the VFX industry will be closely watching what follows. Marvel is one of the most lucrative clients for VFX houses because of the scope of its work. Its tentpoles regularly have an excess of 20,000 VFX shots, sometimes more than a whopping 30,000 per movie. It is unclear who will take over for Alonso in the interim. At least some vendors are working with VFX producer Jen Underdahl for now. But insiders acknowledge whoever assumes her duties officially will face similar challenges as Alonso, who helped put out the unprecedented 18 films, TV shows, and specials that Marvel released in 21 and 2022. Says one VFX pro, whatever criticisms are being leveled against her, she's not an island. Part of the problem is the aggressive release schedules. That aggressive schedule could already be in the rearview mirror, however, as returning CEO Bob Iger has stated an intention to slow down Marvel's output. Yeah, and I actually talked about this in my live stream last week, how Marvel is shifting their schedule around and they're pushing some things back, particularly several of their streaming shows are being pushed back, in some case months, in some case even years. So I think it's interesting because in my video yesterday, I speculated on whether or not Alonso's removal was going to change the way Marvel's content is presented. Basically, I mean, are we going to see them getting less woke? Basically. And my thought was probably not right away, if at all. And if this is accurate, if this really is more about her breaching a business contract to work on this other movie and not related to the whole, Florida bill controversy, which is what I thought it was about. If that's really the case, then that makes it even less likely that there's going to be a change in terms of how the Marvel films are presented. Is there going to be any change in the MCU? And I think this article certainly suggests that no, there won't be. Although it is interesting that her lawyers said that there's more to this story and that she's gonna have more to say soon in one forum or another, and that I mean, basically, what did she say? Disney made a mistake. Basically, Disney's gonna regret this. That's gonna be interesting because, again, with her being so ticking so many diversity boxes, being a woman and being Latina and being gay, that certainly gives her a certain measure of status. And it's not going to go down with some people that Disney fired her. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Couldn't have happened to a nicer company. Okay, so that's really all there is on that story for now. But I did want to touch on that because I just, as I said, released a video on this yesterday. And then even as I was uploading, there was this other information that was coming out. So let's talk about Zachary Levi and what he's had to say since Shazam 2 came out. So, as you probably know, Shazam 2 not doing too well. It's just it's a bomb. I mean, it's just an outright flop. There's no getting around it. And again, I would argue this is not because of the film. I think the film is actually pretty good, but I mean, and I've gone over reasons before, but I think the reason the film is failing is because of a mixture of elements. I think one is just I do think that the superhero fatigue is real. And again, I think we see that with Ant-Man and the Wasp. And again, we've seen that I think more recently with Shazam 2 now and probably with Black Adam as well. I think that the fatigue is real and people in general are kind of getting tired of this stuff. But then on top of that, I think there's a problem of I mean, the first movie didn't do well. It wasn't exactly a hit anyway. And I don't think there were people exactly clamoring for a Shazam sequel. Now, I was glad they made one because I like the first movie and I like this one. I wish they would make a third, but I'm clearly in the minority on that. And, I think it was a sequel that not a lot of people were looking for in the first place. And then they also alienated, I think, a lot of the Snyderverse folks with the whole DC reboot. So that's driven some of them away. And I think even some of them have tried to, like, maybe harm the movie's success, like bashing it and stuff like that. And then I think, and I've said this before, I think that the DC brand is really just damaged at this point. I think there's been so many disappointing films, so many flops that I think that Warner Brothers has really just done serious damage to the brand. And I don't know, it's going to be a long time. It's going to take a lot for them to fix it. But anyway, Zachary Levi has had a lot to say. So let's just go ahead and get into this. So Zachary Levi says Shazam 2 credit scene got thwarted, and it's a shame if all comic book movies have to be serious, intense, dark. So almost a week after Shazam Fury of the Gods opened in theaters, and bombed at the box office, Zachary Levi took to Instagram to weigh in on a whole lot of drama surrounding the DC comic book tentpole. And this is from Variety, by the way. In a video, the actor confirmed that plans for Fury of the Gods post-credit scene, in which Shazam is recruited to join the Justice Society, were thwarted, although he did not say by who. A report from the Wrap published after Fear of the Gods opening weekend claimed that Dwayne Johnson sabotaged the Shazam post-credit scene by blocking Black Adam characters Cyclone and Hawkman from appearing in it. Johnson headlined Black Adam and aimed to start a new thread of the DC universe built around his character facing off against Henry Cavill's Superman. Black Adam also underperformed at the box office, and both Johnson and Cavill are not included in the new DC universe being spearheaded by DC bosses James Gunn and Peter Safran. Yeah, so if you haven't seen the movie, there's a mid-credit sequence, and in that, Shazam is approached by a couple of characters from the Peacemaker show. And I don't know the names of them all, but it's the fat guy with the beard and glasses, whoever he is, and the character played by James Gunn's girlfriend. And they approach him and ask him about. They offer him a place in the Justice Society, which again, kind of odd that people from the government are doing that. So it makes sense that this was originally supposed to be characters from the Justice Society that were in the Black Adam movie. And in the comics, Shazam has been a member of the Justice Society, so that does make sense. It does track. The Fear of the Gods post-credit scene finds Shazam being recruited to join the Justice Society, a group of heroes introduced in Johnson's Black Adam. In the film, it's Amelia Harcourt, Jennifer Holland, and John Economos, Steve Agee from Guns, the Suicide Squad, and Peacemaker, who appear to recruit Shazam, not Cyclone and Hawkman. Levi originally made headlines for sharing the Rap's post on his Instagram story with the caption, "The truth will set you free." While he did not name Dwayne Johnson then or in his new Instagram video, he did confirm that Cyclone and Hawkman were blocked from appearing in the post-credit scene. I may or may not have, reposted something in my stories about a story that I had nothing to do with that the Rap had reported on, Levi said. And then I got flack about it because people were saying, "What are you doing? You're trying to blame this guy because your movie's not doing well." Listen, I haven't blamed anybody. There's not one single person that I blame for anything about the way that our movie has performed. People are slagging on James Gunn because Jennifer Holland, his wife, who is an actor and is in Peacemaker and Suicide Squad, we used Jennifer and Steve in that scene in Shazam. Levi continued. That was not the original intent. The original intent was to have Hawkeye. Did he really say Hawkeye? He meant Hawkman, I'm pretty sure. Hawkman and Cyclone to be there, inviting me into the Justice Society. Walter Hamada, Peter Safran, David Sandberg. We had an awesome scene and we were thwarted. I'm merely coming to the defense of the truth. Truth is good. We should all live in it. Shazam! Fury of the Gods opened to 30 million domestically, well below the 53 million the original Shazam opened with in 2019. It was a big loss considering the sequel cost north of 110 million to make and another 100 million to market. Levi wrote in a tweet that the film's marketing was a big issue as it was not promoted as a family movie, and he also agreed that some Zack Snyder fans were happy the movie bombed as a kind of revenge against Warner Brothers for dropping Snyder's DC universe in favor of Gunn and Safran's new one. The Snyderverse was defined by its brooding and dark tone, which is the direct opposite of the more light and goofy Shazam movies. If you don't want to watch a movie with humor in it because you're more into straight up hard action, I get it, Levi said in his new video. I'm not trying to force anyone to do anything they don't want to do, but let me remind you where comics and Captain Marvel Shazam started. These were comics geared toward younger people and the fun and the silliness and the goofiness. It's a real shame if comic book movies have gotten to a place where they have to be nothing but serious and nothing but intense and nothing but dark, Levi added. That's a sad day. I don't know what else to say about that. Wow, I agree 100% with him on that. I agree absolutely with what he's saying here. And I guess this is a video. I won't go ahead and play it because I mean we've already gone over what he said. So again, it's been framed kind of as him going after Dwayne Johnson and maybe kind of having a beef with Dwayne Johnson, but he's saying that's not the case. And we've got some other articles with him talking. I'll go ahead and look at those as well. Give me just a moment here. I think I got an article here in GQ of all things. Okay. Why is Zachary Levi shading Dwayne Johnson over Shazam bombing? No actor likes to lose at the box office, but less established are especially vulnerable to a bomb, and some find themselves defending their work. That's exactly what Shazam! Fury of the God star Zachary Levi is currently doing, likely to his detriment. After Fear of the Gods' paltry opening weekend, Levi, in a flurry of perhaps relatable but definitely cringe behavior, began wildly sowing blame. On Twitter, a place Levi should maybe consider avoiding for a bit, he quote tweeted a guy with 87 followers who bemoaned Zack Snyder fans who were happy for the film's failures, saying, sad but true, then throwing Warner Brothers under the bus for failing to market the movie as a family film. On that point, he's half right. Fury of the Gods, like the first film, centers on family, but it also features a mind controlled teacher walking off a rooftop and hitting the ground, which we know because we see the body. The Monday morning quarterbacking continued when a report from the Wrap suggested that Fear of the Gods was kneecapped by none other than Dwayne Johnson. In his attempt last year to reorient the DCEU around his Black Adam character, Johnson allegedly flexed his muscles to remove two members of the Justice Society from the Fear of the Gods post-credit sequence uh, and blocked Levi from making a Shazam cameo in Black Adam. Black Adam and Shazam are connected in the comic books that inspired the movies, so they were primed for a theatrical crossover. But Johnson instead tried to use his film to bring Henry Cavill's Superman back into the fold, teasing a DCEU cage match worthy of Johnson's WWE tenure. Levi shared the Rap's report on his Instagram stories with the caption, "The truth shall set you free." Today, there's an Instagram live clip making the rounds in which Levi throws more shade at Johnson. We were thwarted, Levi says, seemingly referring to Johnson. I'm not talking about these things because I'm trying to blame anybody for a movie. I'm coming to the defense of truth because truth is good and we should all live in it. There are two actual reasons why Fury of the Gods failed. One, with James Gunn now in charge, we're in a lame duck period where this movie and the others slated for this year, Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman, don't appear to matter much to the future of the DCU. And two, Fury of the Gods just isn't a good film. The first Shazam was charming. The new one is saddled with darkly lit CGI nonsense, unfunny jokes, an uncompelling story, and some of the most blatant product placement ever. When Dwayne Johnson tried to spin the poor performance of Black Adam, at least he did it by shamelessly trumping up the numbers instead of trying to make an appeal to truth. Johnson is taking his lumps accordingly, but he'll be back later this year with Amazon's Red One. An action adventure movie script is Jumanji meets Miracle on 34th Street meets Hobbs and Shaw. Huh. Interesting. And two more Red Notice films for Netflix in the future. Levi's next project is an adaptation of the Herald and the Purple Crayon children's book. So, I mean, I think they're right in that, this being a sort of lame duck period for the DCU, the movies coming out this year, it really undercuts them and it's going to make it difficult for them to really draw in crowds. And look, I'm not saying the movie's perfect, but I don't think the movie's as bad as they're kind of making it out to be. But yeah, the interesting thing here is it seems like, and there have been a number of reports about this, about Dwayne Johnson kind of trying to make a power play of sorts and trying to, I don't know if a takeover is quite the right way to put it, but certainly trying to make Black Adam, and of course himself, therefore, more central to the DCU on screen. And I mean, that's just it's kind of an ill fit. Like supposedly he wanted Black Adam to kind of be the Iron Man of the DCU. And that's really not what he is. I think you could make in many ways he's kind of like DC's Namor. I think that's a more applicable sort of comparison. But, he's a big star and he's got a big ego and surprise surprise, he wanted everything to revolve around himself. I don't think that's really a big surprise. Most actors are probably going to be like that if they can. And he was trying to do that and kind of bring Cavill back in along with him as Superman, which I think most people wanted. But obviously, with Black Adam not doing well, those plans kind of went nowhere. And let's see, I think I had another article. Let me, okay, so yeah, there's one here again. He's made some comments about Snyderverse fans, which, that's kind of kicking a hornet's nest if ever there was one. But let's go and take a look at this one. This is on CBR.com. Zachary Levi says he loves Snyder fans, but we need more fun superhero films. I agree. Shazam! Fury of the Gods star Zachary Levi hails Zack Snyder fans, but insists comic book movies need to get back to their roots and be fun again. And this is something I very much agree with. Shazam! Fury of the Gods star Zachary Levi continues to defend his film amid backlash from various angles, insisting superhero films need to be more fun while also hailing fans of the Snyderverse. On Instagram, Levi addressed fans regarding the criticism Fear of the Gods has faced thanks to its box office flop, insisting it's still worth a watch despite the tea surrounding him in the movie. I agree. During the video, he hailed fans of Zack Snyder's films and DCU enthusiasts as well as his detractors. However, he clarified that his gripe isn't with moviegoers, but with what they may be looking for in comic book movies. So listen, I don't know if anyone watching right now are any Snyder fans or DC fans. People that are not fans of mine are on the fence or ambivalent. I don't know. But let me just tell you, I love you too, he said. According to Levi, live action movies based on comic books should get back to basics, suggesting they've gotten to a place where they're too dark, thus changing fan expectations. Let me just remind everyone where comics started, particularly where Captain Marvel started. These were comics that were geared toward young people, that were geared toward the escapism and the fun, and oftentimes the silliness and the goofiness and all that. I think it's a real shame that somehow comic book movies have got to a place where they have to be nothing but serious and nothing but intense and nothing but dark. That's a sad day, guys. I don't know what else to say about that. Levi has been on the defensive since news of Fury of the Gods' poor box office numbers leaked, and with the sequel grossing around half the opening weekend amount of what Shazam earned following its 2019 release. So far, attracting just over 70 million on a $125 million budget, the negative feedback from the movie caught Levi, his castmates, and director David F. Sandberg off guard. However, Sandberg also admitted the movie's box office results didn't surprise him. Trying to explain why Fear of the Gods garnered such a disappointing return, Levi blamed bad marketing while calling DC fans toxic in multiple interviews. He also backed reports claiming Dwayne Johnson blocked him from appearing in Black Adam, with the then DCU movie acting as a Shazam spinoff. Meanwhile, Levi's co stars Rachel Zegler and Marta Milan similarly slammed fans for their negative reviews of Fury of the Gods. Though it has a more than respectable 87% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, its critical rating is at 51%, with the consensus targeting the movie's lack of emotional weight and storyline focus. Yeah, so he's kind of walked into a bit of a mess here. I like Zachary Levi. I like him in the role, and I mean, I don't think I think people are casting his comments in the worst light possible. Obviously, you can take exception to maybe to what he's saying, but I think maybe particularly over the internet, things often you don't get the full context. The way things are said, the way they're phrased can make it seem different. So anyway, I don't have a problem for the most part with what he is saying. I think it's understandable, although maybe for him, he might want to stop doing it. Because, like I say, he's probably burning some bridges, and but maybe he's doing that because he knows Shazam's going nowhere anyway. Now, of course, he talked about Snyder, and I want to talk about Zack Snyder as well, because obviously there's been some news with Zack Snyder recently. But before I get to that, let's talk a little bit more about The Rock. I got one article here. Let me bring this up. This is from what, Looper? So, why Dwayne Johnson's DC takeover failed. So, the hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change, crowed Dwayne The Rock Johnson in the days leading up to the release of Black Adam, his DC Films' debut as an ancient superpowered antihero. Since then, these words have become meme fodder as the film failed to live up to expectations, both critical and financial, and as Johnson's plans for a future with Warner Brothers Discovery crumbled to the mat. As the fall of 2022 drew on, Johnson seemed to be positioning himself not only as DC's latest star, but also one of its prime architects. He muscled a cameo from Henry Cavill as Superman into Black Adam. He flooded his social media with videos of himself in Black Adam boardroom meetings that had the air of serious people humoring a self-serious star. But when the film finally arrived, it wasn't the beginning of a glorious new era in DC. Rather, it was a misfire that toppled Johnson and his associates like a WWE backbreaker. Don't you love it when they make these clever puns in their articles? They work in wrestling jargon for him. If it's a Star Wars article, they make Star Wars puns. Yeah, I just love that. Okay, so in a bombshell report, new details surrounding Johnson's planned takeover of the DC universe have come to light, painting a picture of clumsy Machiavellian backroom dealings, ruffled feathers inside the studio, and ultimately an explosion that even Superman couldn't prevent. You come at the king, you best not miss, Michael K. Williams famously says on The Wire. It's advice Dwayne Johnson would have done well to heed. According to a bombshell report from Variety, Johnson and his associates, including producers Bo Flynn and Hiram Garcia, the A-lister's former brother-in-law, made a play to put themselves at the center of future plans for DC Films. Johnson directly pitched new Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav on a Black Adam franchise, which The Rock envisioned as a series of movies leading to a showdown between Adam and Henry Cavill as Superman. The move reportedly came as former DC Studios head Walter Hamada and WB exec Toby Emmerich were on their way out on the heels of post-merger restructuring, the timing of which did little to ingratiate Johnson with others in the company. Variety quotes one source as saying, Dwayne went around everyone, which didn't sit well. Still, incoming film chiefs Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi rubber stamped a Superman cameo by Cavill in Black Adam, creating another issue. Cavill had already been transitioned out of the red cape by Emmerich in 2018. Nonetheless, Johnson's gambit might have succeeded had Black Adam been the success he promised, but its initial budget of 195 million ballooned with 40 million in reshoots, to say nothing of marketing and other associated costs, and when it bagged only 391 at the worldwide box office, the possibility of a sequel evaporated. Meanwhile, those inside Warner Brothers Discovery were growing tired of Johnson, whose demands were reportedly becoming increasingly intolerable. Johnson hawked his tequila brand while projects cratered. So Variety reported that as 2022 went on, Johnson made unusual demands. He allegedly insisted on him being given a producer credit for DC League of Super Pets, an animated film in which Johnson voices Crypto the Superdog. However, he failed to throw his marketing weight behind the movie with anything close to the zeal he reserved for Black Adam, leaving it to languish with a 23 million opening weekend. And when Black Adam arrived, he demanded a bar featuring his personal Terramana brand of tequila at the New York premiere, something that may not have been unusual at an event for an R rated film, but was out of the norm for a PG-13 project like Black Adam. With his projects failing to live up to promises, demands such as those became increasingly intolerable for Warner Brothers Discovery and DC Films. As one source put it to Variety, his demands increased and the returns just weren't there. And with a household name like Johnson attached, the studio couldn't buttress the costs to make the math work, since budgets must be proportional to talent. Johnson was quickly becoming a liability that the studio couldn't stomach. Perhaps the most publicly embarrassing situation resulted from Johnson's attempted studio coup came when Henry Cavill returned as Superman in Black Adam, only to be unceremoniously fired 2 months later. Cavill's Superman cameo in the Black Adam post-credit scene is allegedly the result of Johnson's backroom dealings with Zaslav. But by the time the film premiered on October 26, 2022, James Gunn and Peter Safran had entered the building, taking on the joint role of DC Films head less than a week prior. Gunn and Safran planned for a soft reset of the DC Films franchise. A soft reset. Interesting. And Black Adam bombing only confirmed to them that neither Cavill nor Johnson would continue in their respective roles from that movie. Backed by WB's top players, the pair had extensive decision making power to do with the franchise as they pleased. In December, they cut Cavill loose in a decision that roiled fans and splattered egg on the faces of Johnson and his constituency. The future still looks the future still looks murky for DC Films, though Gunn and Safran seem to have mostly cleared the board of unwanted pieces, leaving them free to build a new strategy. Black Adam, however, will not be a part of it. So, yeah, so a lot of it I think was just bad timing. As they kind of note in this article, I mean, he did this, Johnson, I'm saying, kind of tried this power play in some ways at the worst time, when there was this new regime that was on the verge of coming in. I guess he was just gambling on, you know, Black Adam being a hit, and that would settle all arguments and pave the way for him. But it, as we know, didn't do well. And honestly, the whole thing of Black Adam being like this big cornerstone of the DCU, I'm sorry, but he just isn't. I like the character of Black Adam fine, and I think he's a good and interesting supporting character. He used to be really just kind of a straight up villain for Shazam. He was basically, he's like the evil version of Shazam is what he was. And just like Sinestro is an evil Green Lantern, Reverse Flash is an evil Flash, et cetera, et cetera. So, I liked him fine in that role, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, comic writer Jeff Johns was on Justice Society, and he had brought in Shazam into the Justice Society and had done a good job with the character. But then Shazam left, and then Black Adam came in. And Johnson, as he is kind of want to do with villains, he kind of embellished the character, gave him more of a filled out sort of backstory, made him more of a tragic character, and honestly, I thought made him a more interesting character overall. And I'm not saying he made him it made him likable necessarily, but it was a character where kind of like with Sinestro, for example, which Johnson or Johns had done a similar job with years earlier. He kind of embellished the character and made you sort of understand why he is the way he is and why he does what he does, where he's not necessarily a character who's just evil to be evil, which is kind of what he had been in the past, but where he's more, he's a guy who actually his goals and his sort of what he's working toward isn't really so much a bad thing, but it's just he's an ends justifies the means type of character. He's willing to do awful things to get results. And Dwayne Johns or Dwayne Johns or Black Adam is kind of the same way. But that doesn't make him necessarily a good cornerstone for the DC universe. Now, I do think it would have been fun to see him fight Superman, certainly, as he's one of the few characters at DC that can go toe to toe with Superman and pose a legitimate threat. And also, of course, seeing him fight Shazam would have been fun too. Especially, I think, seeing Zachary Levi's version of Shazam meet Black Adam and having them go at it would have been fun because I think, I mean, having Black Adam play like such a straight man to Levi's goofiness, I think that would have been a lot of fun. But Johnson, I guess, he wanted to be the star and he wanted all the focus on him, so he didn't want to share the screen with Shazam, which is too bad. Now, as I said, we've mentioned Zack Snyder and Snyder fans here. Let's go ahead and talk a bit about Zack Snyder. So he's made some waves recently. As you may or may not have seen, he's posted some stuff on social media, basically hyping a Snyderverse trilogy. And see if I can find it. Where did I put that? Oh, here we go. Let me bring this article up. All right. Zack Snyder details mystery DCU announcement after Justice League teases. Director Zack Snyder has finally revealed what he was teasing in his various DC themed Vero posts over the last week. On a stream on the YouTube channel The Nerd Queens, Snyder announced that as part of SnyderCon, which I guess is this kind of online film festival that he does, there will be a screening of Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Zack Snyder's Justice League in Los Angeles in April. The movies will be screened on April 28th, 29th, and 30th, respectively, with the IMAX version of Justice League being played on April 30th. Tickets to the event are planned to go on sale later this month, while the schedule is as follows: Man of Steel on April 28th, Batman vs. Superman on April 29th, Zack Snyder's Justice League April 30th. Snyder spoke about why he wanted to do the event, stating that it's a coming together of different things. It's kind of a nice, if you will, coming together of different things, Snyder said at the start of the stream. I had always wanted to screen my three DC movies in the theater together, and it was always one of those things that we were never sure would ever happen. Because the IMAX version of Justice League, we have screened it a couple of times in the black and white version. I just wasn't sure there was going to be another time when we could get the color version into the theater, but I really wanted everyone to see the movie in IMAX because it was formatted for IMAX. It's really designed for an IMAX experience. When you see it in IMAX, I think it's completely different from when you see it on TV. And let me say, I'm pretty sure that seeing his Justice League movie in IMAX would be pretty cool. Snyder's last DC film was Zack Snyder's Justice League, which was released in 2021, nearly 4 years after the initial release of Justice League. This version of the movie was a director's cut by Snyder that featured additional characters not seen in the theatrical cut and had a runtime of just over 4 hours. In late 2022, director James Gunn and producer Safran were made co-chairs, blah, blah, blah. We all know about that. So, yeah, I mean, you've got a 4-hour Justice League film nearly, and I'm wondering, it doesn't say anything about this being like was it the extended cut of Batman versus Superman? You know, there's like a extended version of it, which I've seen. And that again, that one it's like over 3 hours too. So I mean, if you see that and Man of Steel and Zack Snyder's Justice League, if it were the extended one, but I don't think it is, that's a lot of Snyderverse to sit through. But the reason I was bringing this up because kind of true to form, there are some folks who are saying that this is leading to a revival of the Snyderverse because he's been dropping these hints online. And hey, Masters Maniac Mexico. Hey, man, no problem being late. Hey, thank you for showing up anyway. I do appreciate it. So, with him dropping hints about these films and references to a Snyder trilogy, and of course, after the whole announcement of the DCU reboot and Gunn and Safran taking over, there were some Snyder fans who tried to get, the hashtag going to get a movement going to get to get Warner Brothers to sell these Snyderverse versions of the DCU to Netflix so that Zack Snyder could continue the Snyderverse on Netflix. I mean, look, God bless them. You got to give them credit. These Snyderverse fans, they're pretty diehard. Yeah, I mean, they know what they like and they are willing to fight for it. I got to respect that. But obviously, with Snyder dropping these hints about a Snyderverse trilogy online, there apparently has been buzz in certain circles that this SnyderCon event would involve a big announcement by Snyder that there's going to be new Snyderverse films being made for Netflix. There's no real evidence of this other than they've just taken, again, some of the things he dropped online and sort of extrapolating out of them. I don't think, again, he says nothing about this. I think it's just what this article says it is. He's doing this film festival. And apparently a part of this is also for charity because he's, as some of you may know, of course, it was, he exited Justice League in part because his teenage daughter, took her own life, tragically. Um, and I mean, as someone who's had people in my family do that as well, I mean, I know how just absolutely gut wrenching it can be. And I can only imagine what it must be like when it's your child. And apparently, this Snyderverse trilogy is going to be in part a charity event to help generate money for suicide prevention. And Variety has this article about it here. Enter the Snyderverse director Zack Snyder uh, is hosting a 3-day celebration of his films in April to benefit the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. The weekend of screenings will take place on April 28th through the 30th, with all proceeds going to AFSP in honor of his daughter, Autumn Snyder, who died at the age of 20. Okay, she was 20. I thought she was a teenager in 2017. The 3-day event will include director's cuts of Snyder's films, followed by in-person and live-streamed Q&As with Snyder and special guests. The movies that will be shown include Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yeah, and I think this is kind of the thing that set off a lot of the speculation. This image right here, obviously, this is the Superman statue that we saw in BVS and Justice League. And it's again, it's I think just kind of referencing the previous films, but some Snyder fans I think have taken because in the movie the statue was destroyed, right? In the movie, Masters Mimic Mexico says, yesterday I picked up a hardcover complete compilation of Batman the Brave and the Bold, new old stock. Not much longer. I'll read it tonight. It's underrated in my opinion. So are you saying a complete compilation of the comic book Brave and the Bold series, the original series? Because there's been a couple of them. I mean, are you talking about the original series? Because a complete series of that, I mean, wow, that would be, yeah, you say it is. Wow. Okay. That must have cost quite a lot. But very cool though, man. That's very cool. Congratulations. Yeah. Brave and the Bold is an underrated series, definitely. Those team up books, whether it's Brave and the Bold or DC Comics presents with Superman, and over at Marvel you had Marvel team up with Spider-Man and Marvel 2-in-1 with the Thing. I think those were underrated books, particularly Marvel 2-in-1. I think that was really, I actually just a couple of weeks ago I was at my local comic shop and I picked up a trade paperback of some Marvel 2-in-1 issues. It's the Project Pegasus storyline. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that was the story that was done in Marvel 2-in-1 back in like the late 70s, early 80s. Masters Maniac Mexico says original series still in fully. $6. Wow, really? $6. Dang. Okay. Well, that's great. That's a great buy. Congratulations. Yeah, I thought about doing a review on that Marvel 2-in-1 stuff. Those are some good comics. But I think those are good because you use a popular solo character to draw people in, but then you get these other characters, so it sort of helps give a reader a glimpse of the rest of the DC universe. It sort of fills out the rest of the universe for them without them having to buy, dozens of books. But anyway, getting back to this article, yeah. So this image here, and I think what Snyder fans seized on was that in the movies the statue was destroyed, but in this image, of course, it's whole again. It's sort of remade, and I think some are taking from that oh, the Snyderverse is going to continue. Again, really just kind of, I think it's just wishful thinking, but that's never stopped the Snyder fans before. In some ways, I think getting the Snyderverse, getting the Snyder Justice League done, kind of, I don't know. I think they got kind of intoxicated on it and felt like, well, they could get anything made that they wanted to if they just, kind of, if they just agitate for it enough. Masters Maniac Mexico says, I like the approach to a new generation. Looking forward for reviews, buddy. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Um, I try to be, I try to be level-headed about it and just try and kind of stick to what I think are kind of the pertinent facts. I know some folks on YouTube rant a lot, and look, and some of them I follow and that I'm fans of, but I'm just not interested in doing that myself. I just try to try not to get into any kind of like attacking people necessarily. But I'm sure there are people who, and I know there are because I've had people send me messages saying that, that like I'm biased and I'm a jerk and all that because I don't say the things they want to hear. But it's just that's just part of being on YouTube. But do thank you for your support, Masters Mexico. I appreciate it. So anyway, with the Snyder fans, yeah, I think this is much ado about nothing. Now, we're coming up on an hour here, so I think I've covered most of what I wanted to talk about. So, I guess what we'll do is we'll just do a little bit of speaking of team up books and speaking of Brave and the Bold, Masters of Maniac Mexico, we'll do a little super team family here and some more team up covers, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here. Okay, so, and I'm assuming you and whoever else is watching is familiar by now with Super Team Family blog. For those who aren't, this is a blog done by a fellow by the name of Ross Pearsall. He's been doing this blog for, I think, going on 13 years now, where he creates fictional comic book covers. And, he uses, I think originally he used Microsoft Paint, think he said, to create fictional team ups. Masters Maniac says, ranting steals my time and my soul. No sense for this anymore. I understand. Okay, so we'll start off here. So Batman and Charlie's Angels. And again, he doesn't necessarily do comic book team ups that just include your standard superheroes. He does characters from TV, characters from movies, and video games and other things. So Batman and Charlie's Angels, obviously, this is a team up that could be a lot of fun. One could imagine him knowing Charlie in some way and getting involved from that angle, like he and Charlie, I don't know, maybe they knew each other in childhood and then Charlie gets kidnapped and then Bruce has to come in and help them. I could imagine that happening. And speaking of TV shows, so Batman and Hawaii Five-O. That's an interesting one. There's a new boss in the Gotham Police Department, and the rules have changed. Commissioner McGarrett. That could be interesting, to say the least. I would have thought that it would be Batman going to Hawaii. That would be more fun, I think, but this works too. Okay, so here's an interesting one. Batman and the Squadron Supreme. And this is one that I'm a big fan of the Squadron Supreme myself. Now, this looks to be a cover. I'm guessing this was originally a Brave and the Bold with someone else here in the background. Uh, this image of the Squadron Supreme. This is taken from an issue of the 1985 Squadron Supreme limited series, which was their first title. Masters of Maniac Mexico says Magnum and Ming. Yeah. Um, So, and this, I believe this art is by Brett Blevins, actually, and this is from the first one or two issues of it. I actually would love to do a video on this miniseries because it's one of my all-time favorite stories. And I think it's actually a pretty important story because in a lot of the ways, this Squadron Supreme series sort of presaged a lot of what we've seen from comics over the last 30 years or so because it sort of predicted the whole thing of comics increasingly becoming about heroes just fighting each other rather than fighting villains. And about it's a story about these superheroes who are basically the Justice League of their world, essentially taking over the world, taking power, seizing control of the government. Again, with the best of intentions, but it's kind of goes wrong. And obviously, having Batman meet up with the Squadron Supreme would be interesting, since again they're a takeoff on the Justice League. In fact, you can't really see him well, but this character right here, right next to Batman's head, that is Nighthawk, and he is the Batman of his world. So yeah, having him meet them would be interesting. All right, next, Batman and Submariner. Okay, and yeah, that would definitely be a cool team up. Submariner is such a volatile character that he always it's so easy to get him into conflicts because he's so arrogant and just so belligerent all the time. So it's not hard to put him in opposition to another character, even if that character is another hero. Masters Maniac Mexico says, in my collection, one can see what I really love as I tend to always pick out repeaters. I understand. That's cool. And of course, Submariner is one of Marvel's oldest characters. He's, I think, second really only to the original Human Torch, who was the first Marvel superhero, technically. So he's even older than Captain America. He even predates Cap by a little while. And I'm pretty sure that this is a Raven the Bold cover, and that originally there would have been a different character here, but I don't know who it would have been originally. All right, next, Batman and the Suicide Squad. Okay, interesting. And this, of course, is the original Suicide Squad, not the 1980s version with supervillains in it. The Suicide Squad was originally a Bronze Age series, and the characters, they were normal humans. They were taken from various branches of the service, and they, I believe, if I remember right, they were picked because of their ability to survive previous missions that seemed like they should have been suicide, but they were able to survive them anyway. And actually, I do remember now this Batman here. This is from a cover of Brave and the Bold. Who was this? Because it had, or was it a Batman? I think because in the original cover, Batman, he's like got someone here in the foreground who he's like got them by the collar of their shirt or whatever, and he's about to punch them. And then there's someone else in the background. I can't remember. I can't remember, but I've got this issue actually. Batman and Taskmaster. Okay, so this is a cool pairing here, and I'm pretty sure this is Perez art, I believe, because George Perez, of course, the great George Perez, designed Taskmaster's look. He was the artist on Avengers when Taskmaster was first introduced. And I'm pretty sure that Taskmaster and his costume in a lot of ways were kind of like a prototype for Deathstroke, who George Perez would create in the New Teen Titans just a couple of years later. And this is, I believe, also a George Perez image of Batman here. I'm not sure where this comes from. This may be from a cover of Teen Titans or maybe Justice League, because he did do Justice League and did several covers for them. But having Taskmaster and Batman meet would obviously be very cool, because Batman's supposed to be, of course, the greatest sort of hand-to-hand fighter, and Taskmaster's whole gimmick is that he is able to duplicate the moves of other people he faces. So he's got the fighting ability of like Captain America and Daredevil and Iron Fist and Black Panther combined, along with like Hawkeye's archery ability, the swordsman's ability with swords, that sort of thing. Okay, Batman and the Thing. Okay, well, speaking of Batman or of Marvel 2-in-1 earlier, having Batman and the Thing team up would be cool. I don't recognize where these images come from. I'm pretty sure that this is from a. Is this from 2-in-1 or Fantastic Four? I'm not sure. It's an Aparo Batman, obviously, and I'm not sure where that is from. Okay, and Batman and the Tick. That would obviously be kind of an interesting team up, to say the least. I do like that Batman image. I'm not sure what it's from though. It looks like it's from maybe from an anniversary issue of some kind. I don't know. And Batman and the Vision. And I mean that would be interesting. Now this looks like, I'm not sure. Is that Mike Zeck? Is that a Mike Zeck? No. I thought for a second that might be a Mike Zeck Batman, but no, that's Norm Brayfogle, I think. So this is probably from a 90s cover. And then I'm not sure who the artist is on the Vision here. But having them meet would be interesting. Masters Maniac Mexico says, I'm working on the first comic for Resurrection Toys, a monster world Predacon versus Xenozilla. I'll have to see our toys come to life. That's cool. So it's like they're like monster mashups, right? Predator and King Kong and the Xenomorph and Godzilla. That's cool. That would be, yeah. I tell you what, man. When you do that, why don't you post that on Twitter, or if you can, or even just DM me if you want. On Twitter, I'm at Comics Classic. Tweet that at me. I'd love to see those images. I think that'd be cool. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll call it a day here. Batman and the Watcher. And again, obviously, these are a number of different images taken. That's him fighting Wolverine there. That's an interesting idea. Although it would, presumably, if he did this sort of thing, it looks like it would be some kind of a, what do you call it? One of those issues where the hero sees different timelines and what he could have been, kind of like a It's a Wonderful Life type of thing. What would your life have been like if this had happened, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll go ahead and stop there. I think that's enough. It's been over an hour here. Masters Maniac Mexico says, yes, the toys are real. Now I work on a classic comic. Oh, okay. So you've already done the toys. I would make it a classic comics exclusive. Okay, that sounds cool. Hey, maybe we can do a video, or I can have you come on the live stream at some point. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't know, maybe next week. I mean, or whenever you're ready to do it. I guess, hey, just if you want to DM me on Twitter, or you can get in touch with me and the live stream next week and let me know. That would be cool, man. But I'm up for it. Anyway, I'll go ahead and stop there. And I want to thank everyone who has been watching, including you, Masters Maniac Mexico. Thank you for showing up, and everyone else who watches on the rewatch as well. And I'll go ahead and stop there. And I hope you all have a good night. Thanks for watching.